Hello everyone and welcome to the Transcendence Succeed Show. I am your guest host, Megan North. I would like to thank our wonderful sponsors of the show, Quantum Awakening, Voyage of Transcendence, myself, and our lovely guest who paid to be featured on this show today. And today I am joined by an amazing and inspiring woman who I immediately connected with when we first met. Kerie Logan has helped people all over the globe live better lives and live the life they love. She's been a therapist and coach for almost 25 years. In 2004, she was awarded the Best Coach of the Year at the PCH Yearly Convention. She has been voted the best hypnotherapist in her area for the past 14 consecutive years. Kerie is also an author, spiritual advisor, blogger, and is the host of the Upper Rooms podcast. Welcome to the show, Kerie. I've really been looking forward to our conversation, so welcome.
I'm still here. I think you froze for a moment.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
It's all good. You know, it's this, we were talking about the date, 11/11, and it's been an interesting day. So it's all good.
Welcome. So Kerie, let's dive right in and start with a question that a lot of people seem to be asking at the moment, and I'm finding a lot of people are asking me as well about this. So what's the difference between 3D, 4D, and 5D human consciousness?
That's a perfect question. A lot of people might know or might not know, but Dr. David Hawkins created the map of human consciousness. He did all the clinical studies and all of that. And in 2012, I channeled a book. And when I got to chapter 3 about our emotions, I was very fascinated. I was like, oh my God, all our emotions have a vibrational set point and they mean something. And you want me to take this and break it up into 3 different categories. And so I was guided, no, science matches this spiritual guidance that you received. So I went online and I found his work and I was like, oh my God, does he know what he found? And the sad part is he died that year. And so I was guided to just start coaching people on aligning to the vibration of love. And that's what I was just told to do. And everyone that I did it with had phenomenal, amazing results. So 3D human consciousness is the range between 20 and 175. So the lowest frequency vibration, energetic, thought patterns we have is shame, humiliation. No one likes to feel that way. And people that want to bully you and intimidate you or make jokes about you, they shame you. That's the lowest one. The next one up is blame and guilt. And we see people when they don't want to accept responsibility for their actions, oh, it's their fault. We see that with children all the time, blaming someone else to get out of trouble. The next one up is it's hopelessness, it's despair. That vibrates at a frequency and energetic of 50. Then you go up to 75, which is regrets and grief. And that's not a wonderful place to be either. And then the one that a lot of people stay stuck in is fear and anxiety. That vibrates at the frequency of 100. And then the next one up, and this one is confusing for a lot of people. It has to do with desire, cravings, lust. And people say, well, why is that bad? Why it's bad is when you're stuck on greed. You're never satisfied. It is never enough. I have to have more money. I have to have more of this. You're hungry for power. You're hungry for money. You're hungry for fame, for wealth. And people are used as an object. They're objectified. If you look at dating apps, it's all superficial. There's no emotional connection. So that is why those desires are negative. You're taking advantage of someone, and no one deserves to be taken advantage of. The next one up is 150 is anger and hate. And when it comes to anger, anger can motivate you into courage, into action, to doing something, or that anger can make you be vengeful. It can literally spiral you down. I want to get back at that person, and that's wrong. And then the last one, and addictions live in these areas too, all addictive behaviors. And then the last one is 175, and that's pride. And people say, and demanding, but that's the egotistical pride. That's where things are black and white. It's my way or the highway. Either you agree with me or you don't. You're not my friend anymore.
Yeah.
So really rigid thinking. It's not accepting people or embracing them for who they are. And so I was told separate it, and that's just 3D human consciousness. And you can be an adult in your body, but immature up here. Totally immature. Because 4D human consciousness, I call, is maturity. The very first step is courage. The courage to view things differently, to be permitting, feasible, and flexible, to agree to not, agree to disagree.
Yeah.
And then the next step up is, it's neutrality. And in there, it's where you can trust and be satisfied and content with what you have in life. So many people look at it from a negative perspective and like, hey, you got a roof over your head. You got a paycheck every 2 weeks. You got income coming in. You have clean water. You got healthy food. You have a car, or you have forms of transportation. A great example my husband gave me is, I used to be upset because I couldn't buy these shoes I wanted to, buy until I met a man that didn't have feet.
Oh, yeah. Okay, right. Yep.
Yeah. You look at it differently. Hey, at least I can wear shoes. This man can't. He doesn't have feet.
Yeah.
And so a lot of us forget to be grateful and satisfied and content with what we do have. So what I tell people, when you're trying to move up out of the 3D range of human consciousness, you want to master baseline. And baseline is the courage to do something different every day and to be satisfied and content with where you're at. And even if you're in a horrible situation, which I have been there before, I've experienced the dark night of the soul, I used this. And I had to remind myself every day that this is temporary. I trust that the universe is going to work this out. I don't know what it is, but I can't control it. I can't manipulate it. I can't influence it. All I can do is just pray and trust that something good is going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but I need to trust and have that faith. The next one up is optimism. That's 310. There's willingness. There's hopefulness, and where you can be inspiring to other people. And that's setting your intention too. Like, what are your intentions? Intentions are completely different than goals. Completely different. I think they are, because it's an intention. I'm making an agreement with myself. I'm making a vow with myself. I'm going to follow through with it. And a lot of people, they don't fulfill their goals. It's because they didn't really have the intention. It sounded like a great idea.
Yeah.
But did you complete it? What's your intention? 350 is forgiveness and acceptance. And a lot of times we need to forgive ourselves, and we forget that. Okay. And then 400 is understanding and reasoning. So let's say you're a person that's stuck in 3D human consciousness and you made a total mistake. You want someone to forgive you. You want someone to listen to you and understand you. You want someone to still accept you and love you unconditionally. And that's the problem, is when you're stuck in 3D human consciousness, it's all conditions. It's not unconditional love, because the last one is, 500 is love, and that's unconditional. I love you and that's why I tell people, you can love a person but still not like them. What you don't like is their personality and behaviors.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then the 5D spot, I do say it does include love, because you got to connect with that. That's where our creator is aligned. We were created out of light and love. Then you want joy. You want bliss. You want peace of mind. You want enlightenment. And that's what I call the sweet spot for manifesting. You are connecting to all those higher vibrational frequencies, and you are becoming one with it. And you're working with it, and it creates literally miracles in people's lives. Miracles, miracles, miracles. I've got so many testimonials of people, and that's what I was taught to do, is do this, create this. There's a woman that's even on the Gaia channel that I worked with her, I coached with her, and she wanted to attract an investor. And she was really, really nervous. She was stuck in fear, stuck in anxiety. I don't know if I can do this. And I really had her focus on, no, you want to stay up here in these higher vibrational thought patterns. Well, long story short, she did attract that investor. And in 18 months, he gave her $9.8 million. Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I've even coached people that started coaching companies. Hey, there's something different about you. What are you doing different? I want you to coach me. I coached that guy, and in what was it? I think 8 or 10 months, he was able to put all his stuff in storage and travel the world with his wife. I coached his wife. He had me coach her. And because I'm very intuitive, I said, hey, you got these little babies up here that want to come in, but your job doesn't allow you to do it. And she thought long and hard. And I said, if you really want that, just connect and talk to those babies. And now they have 2 beautiful kids.
Wow, that's beautiful, Kerie. Really beautiful.
Thank you.
And it's really interesting when you were talking about the 3D, when you were talking specifically about that forgiveness, right? So if you do something wrong, you're in the 3D mindset consciousness, and you're looking for someone to forgive you. I feel like when you're in that 3D consciousness, you're looking externally for things, as opposed to once you start to vibrate up, then you start looking internally. Once you do more and more work internally and look for it within yourself, I feel like that's when you start to vibrate higher. Is that how you feel about it as well?
Yes, because all the answers you seek lie within you. They do. They lie within you, and it's learning how to be quiet and go inside and be curious and ask questions. Like one good question is like, when we get triggered, did it trigger your core values? And do you even know what your core values are? Some people don't even know what their core values are. And let's say we get in a disagreement and I got triggered, and you might not know that, oh, that's her core value. I just triggered that. And because, yes, I've like with one of my core values is parenting. And the other parent I parent with doesn't have the same core value. And I have to learn to accept that. Yeah. That's part of acceptance. That's 4D human consciousness. That's not a high priority for them, but it is for me.
Yeah.
And that's why when I talk to my kiddos, I don't shame that person or blame that person. That would be 3D. I pretty much say, hey, they just don't have the tools in their toolbox.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You know, I do, and that's okay. I still love them. I still accept them. I still want you to love them and accept them. You know, that's just where they're at.
Yeah.
There's no good, there's no bad, no one's right or wrong. It just is information.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know whether you've ever seen, I'm sure you have. There's I love that, it's a graphic representation of how we have different perspectives. So if you and I were sitting across from each other on a table, and there was, for me, I could see the letter 6, I could see it as 6, but you on the opposite side, you can see it as 9. And I love that in the sense of sometimes I need to bring that into myself when I'm being triggered about something, to think, okay, well, I'm coming from my perspective, but actually they're coming from their perspective. Neither of us are right or wrong. It's just about then respecting and accepting where they are on their journey.
100%. And that is a skill, a tool of 4D human consciousness that I say that's why we need to learn to master these upper rooms. If you've listened to any of Paul Selig's channeling works, all his guides say that the small self is stuck in 3D human consciousness. When they say you need to raise your vibration and line up all this, they're talking about the 4D human consciousness. They're talking about those skills and abilities, because then you are thriving. I mean, happiness comes from within. It's not the fancy car or the yacht or that Rolex watch you got. Because I've interviewed so many people that were stuck in that belief that that's what's going to bring me happiness. You know, I have to do this, what corporate America says, or my parents, or religion, or culture, or society. Yeah. No, this is your life, your journey, your experience. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. You're here to learn something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes my kiddo gets frustrated. He's 16, and I tell him, well, you picked this body. Yeah. My son has cerebral palsy. You picked this body for a reason. It's to teach you something. Instead of fighting against it and hating it and being disappointed, be glad you're high functioning, because there's people out there that can't do a lot of things that you do, and they admire what you can do.
Yeah.
And so it's helping someone see it from a different lens, because when we're in 3D human consciousness, is like this. We got these blinders on, and we can't see the solutions that are on the left or on the right. We can't see it. And that's why sometimes it takes a person to walk you up those steps, up to courage to view it differently, and have the courage to go within and get out of blame, get out of anger, get out of hatred, get out of your ego, and really connect with you. A good example I gave him is he hates this negative voice sometimes that he hears in his head. And I said to him, well, I don't hear that voice anymore. Do you want to know what I did? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, so I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to connect to that voice within you. And how old is he? And he said, oh, he's about 8 or 9. And I said, okay. And you know that voice, that is your voice that you hear. And that is a little boy that's stuck and wounded inside and experienced trauma. And he hasn't healed yet. And he's scared, and he's trying to get your attention. That's why you experience anxiety. But what you're doing is you're being an authoritarian parent, but way worse than your dad. And you're saying, shut up, go to your room, leave me alone. I can't stand you. But you should be like me, where I'm like, hey, sweetie, we need to calm down. we need to think about this.
Mm.
You know, I need to listen to you, and I need to validate how you're feeling. I know you're scared. I know you're worried. And when I gave him that example, he started laughing. He was like, oh my God, you're correct. I berate myself all the time. And I'm like, you've got to stop it. And so I had him in that moment sit, talk to that part and say, do the Ho'oponopono, say, I am sorry. And say why you're sorry. I didn't know what I was doing was hurting you and was wrong. I love you. I am so sorry. No child deserves to be treated that way or talked to that way. And then say, thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. And please forgive me. Forgive me for doing this. I was so misguided. And I love you. I love you. I'm here to nurture you and support you and listen to you. And when he did it, it was like he said this calmness just settled down over him. And now he does it. When he gets angry, he stops and he's like, hey, buddy, we need to calm down. Because when we get mad and angry, bad things happen. And I love you. And I don't want bad things to happen to us. And that I think is beautiful.
That is really beautiful. Absolutely. And I also think too, Kerie, it's really interesting just listening to you talking about that, because I've had a bit of an aha moment myself that when we're in that 3D consciousness, we're really mean to ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas once you start to raise up and be in a different consciousness, you actually have more love and compassion for yourself. Yeah.
Yes, you do. I remember watching this one coach talk about her weight, where she said, I have tried every diet under the sun. I took pills, whatever. I even did the bypass surgery and gained all the way back. And she said, I hated my body. I was the worst enemy against my body until one day I had enough. And I said, I'm just going to accept my body the way that it is. So she jumped up to courage. She jumped up into neutrality. I'm just going to be satisfied with my body. I'm going to accept my body the way that it is. And I'm going to forgive myself for beating myself up. I know how to eat healthy. I know how to exercise. I know what to do. I got to stop putting so much pressure on me. And just because society says I should look this way, and which is never going to happen, I need to love me. And I always tell women, which she didn't say, is there's a man out there that's going to love that dimple on your butt. And you might hate it, but he's going to think it's the cutest thing on you.
Love that.
And I've heard stories, like there's a great book out there called Come As You Are. You know, it's about sex and adults. And she talked about how this woman was so embarrassed about the transformation of her body after having a child. And her husband was like, no, this is beautiful. You gave us this gift. This child was a gift. I don't see what you see. I only see beauty and sacrifice.
Wow.
Yeah. And I loved listening to that. And so she said not until she accepted her body did the weight actually come off.
Yeah.
And she wasn't fighting herself anymore. She just made peace. And that's a beautiful lesson and a beautiful gift. And I went up to the woman and I thanked her. Thank you for sharing this. This is a fantastic story.
Yeah.
You know, you're amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. That is beautiful. Wow. Thank you for sharing that, because I love when we can give an example of the work that you're doing to how it's changing people's lives. I really love that. So we need to hear from our sponsors. So we've got so much more to talk about, and we've only just started. So let's hear from our sponsors and we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Thanks, Kerie.
Okay.
welcome back everybody. I'm here with Kerie Logan and we've been talking about the 3D, 4D and 5D consciousness. So Kerie, how could you uncover or work out if you were actually raised in a 3D or a 4D home environment? Someone's sitting here and wondering if this is, some of this sounds familiar. How could you work that out?
That's a great question. So if you were raised in a 4D home or a 3D home, this is what would happen. So let's say I'm a little girl and I am playing with my toys and I'm running through the house, and I know I shouldn't be running through the house, but I'm so excited and so overjoyed having so much. And by accident, I knock over mommy's favorite flower vase and it shatters on the ground. Water spreads everywhere and I start crying. The mom will come in the room and she'll see what happened. And there's two things that are going to happen. If you were raised in a 4D home, she's going to rise up out of anger. And she's going to have the courage to rise up out of anger, which is the very first step of 4D human consciousness. Got to calm myself down, got to get to baseline, got to get grounded, got to get centered. I need to have a conversation with my kiddo. And she gets down on her level and looks in her eyes and says, there's a reason why we have rules, and this is one of the reasons. And I still love you and I forgive you. Accidents happen. And yes, this was mommy's favorite vase. I'm going to need your support and your help getting a new one. And so you might have to do some chores or this or that, or whatever rules you have, but you're optimistic, you're not yelling, you're calm, you're forgiving, you're understanding, and you're showing unconditional love. Now, for me, in the home I was raised in, that didn't happen. Right. My mom would not be able to get out of anger, and she would and that's the hard part, is as a child, we don't have those coping skills as an adult. So that kiddo's going to internalize it. And that kiddo is going to have fear and anxiety.
Yeah.
That kiddo's going to dive down into regret and despair. That child will feel guilt, and that child might want to blame, it was his fault. He was scaring me, and that's why I ran. They might come up with some excuse. And then some parents might even shame and humiliate the kiddo. And that's where our core wounds start. I'm not good enough. I don't matter. A kid could even explain to their parent, this is what happened. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. And the parent will be like, I don't care what you have to say. Go to your room.
Yeah.
So then my opinion doesn't matter. I mess everything up. I'm a failure.
I'm not good.
I'm not good enough. I'm unworthy. And all those core wounds happen. And it's nobody's fault. Nobody's fault at all.
Yeah.
And I tell people that when it comes to working on our core wounds, it's not a blame game at all. Because when I went back and I asked my parents about their childhood, and even though they sucked, they did a much better job than how they were raised. And then when I asked my grandparents how they were raised, oh my gosh, much better job.
Yeah.
And so I tell people, just because you figure out you grew up in a 3D home environment, I don't want you to hate your parents or be angry at your parents or find blame or do any of that. Realize they did the very best that they could with the tools that they had in that toolbox. Nobody is perfect. I'm not perfect. I've asked my son times to forgive me when I lost my temper. And he's like, no, I understand. And he's like, I understand. And he's giving me forgiveness. He's giving me grace. And I'm like, I'm not a perfect parent. He's like, well, you're perfect to me. And I'm like, well, thank you. But still, I'm not perfect. I say I'm perfectly imperfect. Yeah, I'll have my days when I get irritable and cranky, but I know that when I have those days, I'm not meeting something inside of me. Like I need to do self-care for me. I need to listen to me and find out, why am I getting so triggered? Am I not getting enough sleep? Am I working? Am I working too long of days? Am I not taking breaks? What am I doing? It's not about you. What am I not giving myself?
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. And because it's also then having that courage to take responsibility as well, isn't it? Like once you step into that 4D, it's actually being courageous enough to go, actually, this is triggering me. This is sitting with me. What's the work that I can do myself?
Yes, it is. And then when you get the answer, forgiving yourself. And forgiving the person, forgiving the situation, even forgiving the energy around that situation and everything. I had a situation just recently where I've done tons of forgiveness work, tons and tons of forgiveness work. And I'm in the States, and there was upcoming elections, and there was someone that I know in the community that represents and I got the flyer in the mail, and when I saw it, it triggered all of my core values about parenting, about justice, about morals, ethics, all of that. And because she failed miserably, and it's like, you want this job? And I was so triggered, and I had to recognize that, no, she's triggering my core values. Because she lacks the integrity, she lacks this, she lacks that. Because on her flyer it said, I'm here to protect families. And I just laughed. I laughed, and I realized I need to forgive. I need to totally forgive this, and I need to get it out of my energy, or else it's going to influence me. And so I did it. And what was so profound is when I did it, at the end, and I forgave the whole energy, the whole situation, and I handed it up, I literally, within 30 seconds, heard and felt this whoosh sound. And I saw this big round ball in my mind come out of my body, just unplug. And I was like, yes. And I looked at her flyer again, and I wasn't triggered. I was not triggered at all. And that's when you know you've completely forgiven, and that person's no longer hooked into you energetically, vibrationally. You can look at their picture, you can hear them talk, and it has nothing to do with you. And I'm glad to say, I know this might sound mean to some people, I'm glad to say she did not get picked. Someone else, got the job. But when I sat and I prayed on it, I was like, God, universe, how I feel about this, how my son feels about this. I'm going to trust exactly what's the highest and the best for the whole of the community.
Yeah.
Not about me, the whole of the community. What do they need?
Yeah.
And I do believe, prayers are answered. And I do believe that the person that was picked, is the best one. And we can say the same thing about what's going on in the US. A lot of people are upset, but I say there's a lesson in this.
Yeah.
It's not a lesson for me, but there's a lesson in this for other people, because we're all here to learn lessons.
Yeah.
And if you don't learn it, it's going to repeat until you learn it.
Until you learn it. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that forgiveness work, what I find too, because I've done a lot of forgiveness work as well, is that the feeling of freedom that it gives you, because the energy, it's not hooked into you anymore. There's no energy anymore. And I feel free when I really release the energy of something that's happened, toxic energy, with forgiveness. I just,
Yeah.
for you, when you explain that feeling of freedom, that it's finally left your body, is just so beautiful, because I don't know, that's what I think forgiveness gives me, is the freedom.
It does. I have a family member that's rather toxic, and I was with my brother going through their estate, and I was happy and joyful, and I was just like, hey, it's good to see you, let's do this. And the person went over to my brother when I was inside the building and was like, what's wrong with her? Is she on drugs? What's wrong with her? And and just like you, when my brother came back and told me, I was laughing. I said, I am free of this person.
Yeah.
No matter what they say, no matter what they do, it's not gonna trigger me, because I accept them unconditionally. I know I don't like them, but I still love them.
Yeah.
And even at the end of the visit, I gave the person a hug. And that blew them away. I was like, hey, I have no animosity towards you. I wish you a happy life.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
And
just,
not many people can do that.
yeah. Yeah. And then that freedom that it's given you just to not put the energy into it anymore. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yes. And it helps clients. It helps a lot of people out, because that's the difference between, let's say, traditional talk, therapy is, do they give you homework? And a lot of, therapists aren't allowed to share their personal experiences or their personal stories, but we're storytellers. We've always been storytellers. That's how we learn. A lot of times is by, oh my God, you had that experience. I can relate.
Yeah.
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 It shows you're human.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And so when we're talking about raising our vibration so if someone's watching this and they're like, okay, I'm realizing that I'm really in that 3D and I'd like to start to level up and go into that 4D, how would someone start to make that change?
Well, I would say pick the easiest one to start first. You don't want to, on a scale of 1 to 10, do not pick a 10. I mean, come on.
Good suggestion, Kerie. Great suggestion.
Because when you pick a really difficult one, you will most likely then get that belief or concept of, oh, it's all going to fail. Nothing's going to work.
Yeah.
You want to pick something simple and easy. And so that first step is courage. The courage to look outside the box. So for example, let's say if you were raised in a 3D home environment and you're struggling with how you were raised, go to your parents and ask them what their childhood was like. If you don't communicate with your parents, but you still communicate with your grandparents, ask your grandparents. How was it? And you'll learn so much, because there's things I learned about my father that only my grandparents would share. And when I learned about it, I was like, OMG, that explains exactly how he became who he is. Wow. And it gave me compassion, and it gave me, just so much more love towards him. And I was like, holy cow. I feel for this man. I understand his anger. I understand why he treats women the way that he does. I get it. I'm not excusing his behavior, but I get it.
Yeah.
And that helped me have the, walking up, the courage to do something different, the ability to look at it from a different perspective instead of like this, victim mentality. I was able to forgive him and accept him. I was able to find reasoning and wisdom within the information I received. And I was able to be like, okay, I love this man. I just don't like him. And that's okay. But now I understand who he is. And then I also look at it as he's my greatest teacher. He taught me unconditional love. He taught me about forgiveness. He taught me all these things. And because some people do choose to be your teachers, the ones that you hate the most and dislike the most are your teachers. Bottom line, if there's a great book out there called The Sun and the Little Soul, it's all about that. This little soul up in heaven that wants to learn forgiveness, unconditional love. And it's like, that's really a hard one to learn. And one person in his soul group said, I've taken on this role and I want you to know that I love you the most. And when you meet me, you're going to hate me. You're going to hate everything about me. I'm going to make you angry and miserable and this and that. But if you can find forgiveness and if you can love me unconditionally, then I've done my job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I say it's in a children's book, because as an adult, that's a big pill to swallow. A massive pill to swallow. It's better to take it in the small child-sized tablet than in adult size, because we have all those life experiences. Well, Megan, we see kids playing and they get mad and they have tantrums, but then they line back up to 4D and it's like, I forgive you. I'm sorry. Let's not fight anymore. Let's play and let's be friends. And it's like nothing happened. They're laughing, they're hugging, they're playing. And we're like, how do they do that?
Yeah.
Well, we had the same skills and abilities. We just got stuck in so much negativity.
Yeah. 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 That book is really amazing, isn't it? I think that's definitely a very eye-opening book. It's actually a very good one for you to use it as an example of what we're talking about, because I think there's a lot of lessons in that book. And as you said, it's a child's book too, so so that actually would probably be a really nice way for people to, if they're starting their journey, to have a read of that book as well. And so we've talked about the frequency and the vibration of love. So can anyone align to that frequency? And if they can, how would they start to do that?
Well, all of the 17 steps, the different energies and frequencies, it's available to all of us 24/7.
Yeah.
It's always there. And I tell people, let's say you're really down in the dumps and you're hurting really, really bad. Well, go home, snuggle with your dog, snuggle with your cat. Your animal loves you unconditionally. And that gets you into neutrality, where you're just letting all that garbage go. You just let it go. And I'm going to connect with this animal and I'm going to snuggle with this animal. Same with your kids. I'm going to do something that's good. I'll watch a comedy. Laugh. There's so much beauty and joy and laughter. And who doesn't love to laugh?
Yeah.
I call it redirecting you. Redirect you to a happier place, to a place where you're more joyful. And sometimes just hanging out with a friend that lifts you up instead of brings you down. They can bring you in that place of love. They can give you a hug. They can hold your hand. They can talk to you and say, hey, I know this situation sucks, but I still love you. And you can feel that love because it's sincere. It's not fake. Yeah. It's not they're just saying it to say it. You can tell the difference between sincere love and genuine love than someone just saying it.
Yeah.
And when it comes to love, I tell people that you can even think of a place, because like nature, there's places out in nature you can step into, and it is such a loving, wonderful environment. You can feel it. Well, and we can also step into places that have been destroyed, and we feel that depression. We feel that energy. So that's why going on vacation is fabulous. You know, you're in this beautiful, loving environment and you just feel so good.
Yeah.
So that's why I tell people, make your home your sanctuary. You know, if you need a room where that's just your room, where you decorate it all the way you want, that's your safe space. Yeah. That's your loving room. And when you're in there, feel all the good energy, the good vibes in your space.
Yeah.
When it comes to manifesting, that is the place you want. So I know I shared this story about getting pregnant. I'll share it with other people. But I was working with this one client that wanted to manifest her husband, and she did. And what was really cool about it is I like to record it. When anyone manifests, because we're radio towers. So I recorded it, and I had her not be like, he has to be this tall, he has to have that much. That's all superficial.
Yeah.
It was more about the essence of him, his soul, which is loving and kind and forgiving and unconditional and patient and compassionate. All those things in 4D, 5D that you want. He's got these qualities.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that she started to see a face. And that was right before COVID happened. And she went to India, and she was kind of stuck there for a while, but she did meet a fabulous guy, really, really liked him. And when she came back to the States, she started trolling through his Facebook and saw the image of him and was like, oh my God, that's him. An older picture. That's the same guy I saw in my mind's eye. And she said this, I am so glad I did not know it was him, because I would have ruined it. I would have been like, yeah, I would have ruined it. I would have been like, oh my God, it's you, it's you, it's you. And she probably would have like love bombed him and just freaked him out, and he would have been out of there. She knew it. I am so glad I did not know. And there was that wall of that separation distance wise.
Yeah.
And she didn't share it with him for quite a while. But they ended up getting married, and they, for a year and a half, were trying to have a baby. And like most people, they go about the 3D way, where it's sex is now a job, and and check his sperm count, got to do IVF, got to do all this stuff. And she got so frustrated that she finally came to me. And I said, well, what you're doing wrong is this baby wants to be created out of love.
Love.
Because you guys came together with unconditional love and you love one another. But this baby is coming in as a higher consciousness. It's not going to come in at 3D. It's not, period. So I said, what we're going to do is we're going to clear all of those negative experiences, and we are going to fill your womb with love and light, a nurturing environment where it's beautiful, it's healthy, love, all this. And then you're going to connect to that baby, and you're going to talk to it. And just like the Ho'oponopono, you're going to say, please forgive me. I know you deserve a lot better. And now, whenever you want to come in, I am ready for you. This is a loving space. I love you. I adore you. We're happy for you. It could happen today. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen in a couple of years. But just know, whenever you're ready, you're welcome. You're taking away the force and control, and you're allowing the baby to decide, because we're energetic beings.
Yeah.
And then imagine literally you're holding that baby, and feel the love, feel the joy, feel the bliss, feel all of those emotions. Okay, that's all 5D. Feel it, and do this every day for 30 days. Well, she did it every day for 30 days. And within 30 days, she got pregnant. And she's probably right now 20 weeks pregnant, expecting a baby girl.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So you do the math. It was like, what, 580 days of force and control, and then 30 days of, no, I need to be up here.
Yeah.
This is where the magic is. This is the sweet spot.
Yeah.
And it happened. And that's why sometimes when you listen to people that channel, like Abraham Hicks or even Paul Selig, they say you can have instant manifestation. You can have things literally switch. And that's why my philosophy about why you record it is, think about a smoker, okay? They consciously know they shouldn't be smoking. It's bad for their health. But this is the operating system, your subconscious mind. And you need to get it in both departments. You need to rewire your brain. You need to deactivate the negativity, and you need to install this new program. And just focus on what it is you want to manifest with joy and happiness and love and gratitude, and allow the universe to bring it to you the way that it wants to bring it to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let
Wow.
all expectations out the door. I mean, I remember one time, this is kind of funny, Megan.
So we're coming up to time, Kerie. So
Okay.
we haven't talked about your offer yet. Can we talk about your offer
Oh,
first?
yes. Talk about my offer.
Yeah,
Yes. Talk.
yeah. So do you want to share your offer and what it's about?
Yes. So this is a coupon code where if anyone wants to do a session with me, you want a custom recording, you want coaching, you want me to channel. I'm very, very spot on when I do it. Anything you order $100, there's a $20 coupon, and use that and use it to your advantage. If you want to share it with someone else, share it. And there's a bunch of free stuff on my website. There's free images, free ebooks. And even if you get the image of the breakdown of the 3D, 4D, and 5, I tell people, use that with your employees. Use it with your kids. Use it with your friends and family, because when you figure out where their set point is, you know what exact step to take.
Yeah, yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you for your generosity. Now, we do only have a couple of minutes left. I think that we could have just kept going, but unfortunately we are time bound today, so I might have to get you back, Kerie.
Thank you.
So I would like to ask you the same question that I ask all of my guests. And so can you share with us what your favorite quote is and why is it so important to you?
Labels are for jars, not people. And why that is we're always changing. I mean, if we're always changing, just because, let's say you struggle with alcohol addiction and now you don't anymore, it doesn't mean you're an alcoholic. That label is gone. Yeah. And like, let's say you were abused as a child. Well, I'm an abuse survivor. Do you want to wear that label? Do you want to carry that label with you? And if you don't anymore, you don't need to. I mean, we're always changing. So I tell people, be kind and gentle with yourself.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. I really love that. Kerie, thank you so much for being my guest today. I knew our conversation would be amazing, and I'm not disappointed, that's for sure. And I've learned a lot from you today, which I have no doubt the audience will have as well. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Megan. I appreciate your time and everything that you do here. It's fabulous. And as your sponsor ad, I 100% agree with subliminals, because I use them myself with my clients and they're fabulous.
Thank you.
You're
and
welcome.
I just want to also thank all of our amazing and dedicated audience, our supporters and our sponsors. And I hope that you all have an amazing weekend, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you.